Hello and welcome to the show. We start this week's Tuner Thursday with a Ferrari F50 from Stick Power 78. The F50 is certainly a car, at least that I've overlooked on the most part when it comes to Forza 5 until the fairly recent Versus the Community where we did Ferraris against Lamborghinis and the F50s were mighty fast. I'd never really thought about them, never used one, certainly never driven one until I came to do this particular video. So yeah, I was interested to see how the Ferrari goes. Again, I was expecting this one to be fairly quick. I was expecting this one, as I said, the F50s were bloody fast in the Versus the Community, and that was in A-Class, so yeah, I'd expected that this one here might be pretty damn quick. It does have one major flaw. We'll start with that. It does not like curbs at all. It really does not like... I mean, cars have problems with these curves, with these bumps at Long Beach. Every car I've driven near enough will have problems if you clatter them hard enough. It will normally, though, just be lift the car up on two wheels and kind of throw it a bit sideways. If you hit the curbs with the F50, it will violently spin it, or really, like, seriously throw it up on two wheels. It does not like the curbs whatsoever. You cannot go near the curbs in this car. So yeah, I mean that's just a driving thing. I've got to. You can't be aggressive with it towards the curbs because it won't deal with it. So you got to be careful with this car. As far as statistics go, 530 horsepower from the Ferrari. It sounds fantastic as well. So decent power from the car. Not a huge amount of torque, only 358, but it doesn't weigh too much, 2,500 pounds. So it's sort of perhaps the average almost when it comes to specifications. As I said last week, most cars are putting out around 500 horsepower in A-Class. This is perhaps a little bit lighter than some of the other vehicles. However, when it comes to the actual handling, the actual grip around the corners, this car is phenomenal. It's like nothing I've ever had on this series yet. It can carry such fantastic... It's the corner exit speed that you get out of this car is incredible. And that's kind of a bit of the way I like to drive my cars, as I've seemed to have learnt from certainly from iRacing and Project Cars. I tend to be a bit slower on the way into the corner and try and get as much speed on the way out of it. And this car is very good at that. It hasn't got the same top speed as some of the other cars. It tops out at about 150-ish miles an hour down the start-finish straight, but it can carry so much speed on the corner exit because it's very low, decently light. It's not quite as light as some cars we've had, but it's fairly light. It's incredibly quick accelerating as well. Brakes, very good. We're braking at around the 400-meter board. It's around the same kind of area we are braking with the ACR Viper. That puts into context just how good the brakes are on the Viper. The Viper can't carry quite the corner speed that you get from this Ferrari. It doesn't get the same speed out of the corners, but it brakes at the same point, and that's for a 500-pound heavier super muscle car. So yeah, the brakes on the Viper were incredible, and the brakes on this are very good as well. It gets stopped very quickly. It accelerates very fast out of the corners, and it's just a generally very nice car to drive. The only slight problem with the handling, aside from avoid the curbs like crazy, is there is a tiny bit of oversteer on this car. It tends to be between first and second gear, certainly around the roundabout and that kind of section. When you're changing from first to second, it will like to spin and shift around a little bit. Through the rest of the track, though, it's incredibly planted. Through here, you can see how much speed we can carry on the exit of the corners. The back of the car is very well planted on the road all through here. I mean, out of the hairpin, 500 horsepower in a rear-wheel drive car. If you boot it, it's going to spin the wheels up, it's going to slide, it's going to move around a little bit. But in the Ferrari, it's remarkably good. Again, there's another first to second gear kind of section that will just occasionally jump the rear out on the car. There's no question of being flat out around that kink. It's a lovely car to drive, very easy to get around a track, and yeah, I really like the way it handles and the way it gets corner speed. Up next, from Bacon Twin Turbo, we've got a Clio V8 because it's not got the standard engine in it anymore. I do like this Clio. I like it because it is crazy. I tend to build crazy cars. I like crazy cars, and this was a case of let's take a boring, fairly common family hatchback and put a V6 in the middle and make it rear-wheel drive. And I like that idea. I mean, it has some downsides, shall we say. On Forza 4, this car was lovely to drive. On Forza 5, the V6 standard is very understeery. it's not the nicest car. It's not the nicest car to drive. And I think it was kind of like that in real life as well. It's the downside of having a lot of the weight towards the back. The front of the car just doesn't quite have the same grip. And yeah, the Clio V6 on Forza 5 is a bit understeery when it comes to standard. This one though is not at all standard. No, this has got a V8 engine in it from a Ferrari 458, which means we have 562 horsepower. Yes, we have a Clio that is more powerful than a Ferrari F50. It's a lot of power, and again, it's another car that, yes, you can get it sideways if you get things a little bit wrong. It's got more torque than the Ferrari as well, 398, and it's not much heavier, 2,600 pounds in this Clio. I'm surprised it is heavier than the F50, but yeah, that's a lot of power. That is an awful lot of power to put in a tiny wheelbase rear-wheel drive car. I mean, and that's another problem when you put big powerful engines in a tiny wheelbase. Will it become twitchy? As another, so we've got a car that's naturally understeery, and then we've got a lot of power making it naturally twitchy. That's a lot of things to try and overcome. I do love the paint job on this as well. Fantastic paint job. Yeah, it's a lot of things to try and overcome with this car, and it does remarkably well, I have to say. First of all, acceleration is incredible on this vehicle. It's phenomenally quick out of the corners. It is very fast in a straight line. We're talking 163 towards this braking zone. It's bloody scary around the kink. If you get it a little bit wrong, if you turn in a fraction too late to that corner, you will end up running the wall, as I did on that time round. It's scary, but it is blisteringly quick. One of the faster cars we've had. Is up there with the Ferrari GTO. Very, very fast car. This one. The brakes are not the best, shall we say, although part of that is to do with the fact that we are going so fast. We're 10 miles an hour quicker than the F50, but it doesn't feel as nice on the brakes as the Ferrari. It also moves around a little bit under braking, does the Clio. You'll see it a few times here. It just moves around under heavy braking, and that's kind of scary. And then we come to the handling. The handling of this car is quite frankly bizarre, because it's got so much almost naturally wrong with it. A lot of work has gone into making this car drivable, and it is drivable. It just feels very strange, to be honest. It feels like it's constantly wanting to understeer and wanting to be twitchy all at the same time, and somehow it's all just about staying on the road. It constantly feels as if it's wanting to do something to put you in a wall. Quite what that something is, I'm never quite sure. It's always trying to, although it never does. I mean, okay, you saw me get it very, very sideways when I ran a bit wide on that corner, but a lot of rear-wheel drive cars will do that naturally. If I did that with a Ferrari, it would probably want to be sliding as well. Again, more moving under braking into the first corner. It's not the easiest of cars to drive, this one, because it just feels quite strange. You'll notice there are a few dings on the car where I'd scraped a wall here and there, and you can get some decent speed out of the Clio. It's just quite a difficult one to get the hang of, because it constantly feels like it wants to kill you. It constantly feels like it's wanting to do something it shouldn't be. It stays together on the most part, but you can never quite shake the feeling that it's wanting to try and kill you. It'll get sort of little twitches on the exit of corners, or you'll suddenly get some understeer when you weren't quite expecting it and end up heading towards a wall. I may have got very close to a wall that time round. After the craziness of the Clio, it was nice to go to something sensible, something German, the Audi RS4. This one from Amazing Horse 181. Yeah, very, very different to the Clio V8, and perhaps not the car you would expect for circuit time trialling. The cars that have gone to the top of the leaderboard in this challenge so far have been small, light and sports cars and supercars, and this is none of the above. It's a big four-wheel drive, four-door saloon car, and yeah, not your first thought when it comes to time trialling necessarily. A good car, don't get me wrong, I love the RS4s, but yeah, certainly not the first car that would spring to my mind anyway. And the concern with having a big Audi is, first of all, the weight. I mean, these cars are fairly heavy standard. This one, when in this spec, if you like, 2,900 pounds. That's not too bad. That's lighter than I was expecting from the car. I mean, I'm assuming we've got full-on weight reduction here. It's still the heaviest car that we'll have had today. It's not too bad on the weight front though. Power is also fairly decent. There's another 500 horsepower plus, this time 513. Not quite as much torque, but it's still pretty close to the Ferrari 350 in this car. And of course, being four-wheel drive, you can use all of the power and all of the torque whenever you want. You can deploy the power because there's very little in the way of oversteer. Of course, the downside, the trade-off you get for being able to deploy all the power is often understeer. And again, that's another concern with the heavier cars, that it's going to be understeery. The Audi isn't. And I'm not quite sure how they've done it, but it is a very, very nice car to drive. This one, it's a very easy car to drive because you can put the power down whenever you want, and there's no understeer really from the car. It just has a lot of grip, which is nice. It really did make a change from going from the Clio that was crazy to this. It was very sensible, very easy, on the most part very calm. I did get a big slide out of that final hairpin. I mean, any car that's got this much power, even if it is four-wheel drive, if you're a moron in a low gear, you're still going to slide it out of that hairpin. And sure enough, the Audi would do it. I mean, there's no question, it's easily flat out around the kink, and there's no problems. They can hold a very, very tight line. I got a little bit brave on this particular lap in that braking zone. I just braked a little bit too late on that one. Ended up running a little bit wide, and again, trying to boot it in the low gears, got the car a bit sideways out of the roundabout. The thing with this car is that because it is such a nice and easy car to drive, you feel like you can push it an awful lot more. With the Clio, you're kind of hanging on for dear life. With this, though, I could experiment more. It's sort of much safer. If you get things wrong, okay, maybe you might outbrake yourself by a little bit, but you tend not to have a particularly big accident with this car. It never feels like you're ever going to end up in the wall somewhere, because it's just such an easy car to keep control with, to get some decent lap times out of. As I said, it is a little bit heavier, and while yes, four-wheel drive does give it good traction and so on, it doesn't quite have the same acceleration as the Ferrari. It doesn't quite have the same top speed. It doesn't quite brake as nicely. You can't brake as late with the Audi. It's still damn good though. It's still late on the brakes. It's perhaps a little bit more towards the 500-meter board at the end of this first straight, but it's still just overall an all-round nice car to drive. A pleasant driving experience, shall we say, from the Audi. Not at all what I expected from this car. It really is. It drives like a much smaller, lighter sports car. It really does. Yeah, a very, very nice car. It can even deal with the curbs. Probably of all the vehicles I've driven, this is the best for dealing with clattering the curbs. I mean, you saw the Ferrari get all unhappy. I mean, if you really clattered the curbs with this, it would. But on the most part, you could run the curbs. You could run the risk of hitting them. And the Audi was okay with it. Yeah, a really nice car. A complete and utter surprise. This one, yeah, one of my favourite sort of surprises of this competition. Anyway, on to the times, and it is the F50 that goes to the top of the table with a massively impressive 123.6. May not quite have the straight line speed of the GTO, but my God, can it carry quarter speed? Yeah, the F50 is an incredible car. Very, very quick around this track. Amazingly, and I still can't quite believe this time, from the Clio V8, it goes into fourth, only a fraction slower than a Lotus 211 with a 124.5. I have no idea how the Clio did that, because it is such a strange car to drive. It's really weird handling characteristics, but it is such blindingly fast in a straight line and very, very good acceleration from the Clio that if you can keep it together through the corners, you can get a very fast lap time out of it, although, yeah, easily one of the scariest cars I have had to drive. The RS4 also goes pretty damn quick, a 125.0. Yeah, not quite got the same acceleration, straight line speed or brakes as the Ferraris, but it's one of the easier cars to drive, I have to say. Very good, very easy to get it around a track, and of course, four-wheel drive means you can deploy the power whenever you want. Yeah, just a generally nice car to drive, that one. However, that is it for this week's Tuner Thursday. If you would like to submit your cars for future episodes, you can go to our forums. There will be a link in the description. Find the official Forza 5 events, and in there will be the car submission thread and all the rules for the vehicles. However, that's it from me, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.